Okay, thank you, Grace of Heaven, Grand Master, Grand Predecessor, all the Buddhas and Saints, transmitters on all of you for this opportunity to try to learn to speak on and presenting this topic, how to overcome obstacles in Tao cultivation. So, Tao is the way, as we all know and have heard many times. It also refers to the path, the road, the channel, and the doctrine and the line. Apart from that, Tao is not so much about what it is, but more about what it points to. Tao, the way, or truth. As Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching and chapter 32, explain that Tao is not a name for a thing, but the underlying natural order of the universe, whose ultimate essence is difficult to circumscribe due to the being non-conceptual yet evident in one being of aliveness. So it's not real, so it gives you that feeling of knowing that it is so right that you can't say it is this or it is that. It's just there. It is because it's the truth. It is essentially nameless, and to the distinguished form and countless name things that which is considered to be in manifestation of the reality of life before a description of it. As a Tao cultivator, we are faced with various obstacles daily. A differentiating heart. So let me explain. So our differentiating heart, greed, anger, and ignorance, or the three poisons, three hearts, desires, the perception of object, attachment, wrong views, likes and dislikes, ego, and self, permanence and impermanence. Now there are many more obstacles, but these are the main obstacles as Tao cultivators that we face and have to learn how to overcome all the time to be able to have a really good way of cultivating. So let's look at a differentiating heart. So differentiating heart is an obstacle in Tao cultivation. Obstacles are encountered because of our heart and mind, which makes us a prisoner in this mundane secular world. Our heart and mind constantly deviates from cultivation. When and if we start to remember and returns to the process of cultivation, Tao will immediately be there. So sometimes we forget and we do things that we should not do, but when we remember, Tao will always not going to abandon us. We just have to go back to the process of cultivating. That does not mean that we should be doing something like that all the time. We should stay on the path. Our heart and mind is our greatest obstacle in this. We are all trapped in our mind, and the scariest part of this is that we don't even realize it. We allow our minds to be in charge, while in fact it is our Buddha nature and not our mind. As cultivators, we must be guided by our Buddha nature, not our unsettling heart and mind. As cultivators, we take time. It takes time, discipline, devotion, determination to be constantly aware. Thereafter, cultivators can develop and maintain the ability to overcome obstacles and challenges. So greed. The Master said, if our conduct is determined solely by consideration of profit, we will arouse great resentment. So wealth and rank are what men desire, but unless unless they be obtained in the right way, they may not be possessed. Poverty and obscurity are what men detest most, but when prosperity be brought about in the right way, they are not to be abandoned. Confucius said, the exemplary person cherish their excellence. A petty person cherish their land. An exemplary person cherish fairness. The petty person cherish thought of gain. Benjamin Franklin said, he that is of the opinion money will do everything may well be suspected of doing everything for money. And our friend that we speak about all the time, Warren Buffett, said, investors should remember the excitement and expenses are their enemies. And if they insist on trying to time their participation in equities, they should try to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. The people, it's so hard because we have this topic all the time, and we have to keep remembering that the earth has enough to satisfy every living being, but not every living being's greed. If for instance people are satisfied with what they have, there will be enough for everybody. And if we're thinking that there are lots of animals to use up the resources, there will still be enough because Mother Nature will take care of everyone's need. So anger. So Confucius said, to be wronged is nothing unless we continue to remember it. If a man is under the influence of anger, his conduct will not be corrected. To their duties and loved ones, they dispel the same to their anger. Anger is an acid that can be that can do more harm to a vessel than that which it is stored in. So if we keep harboring anger and we have a heart full of anger, we'll not be able to be tranquil or to speak to people nicely, or everything will tick us off. We'll just be dispelling that anger all the time. Every day as cultivators, we have plenty of opportunities to be angry, stressed out, offended, but when we are but what we are doing when and if we indulge in these negative emotions, we'll give something outside of our self-power, power over us, our happiness. We choose to not let little things upset us and unable to overcome these obstacles. Ignorance. By three methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. As per Confucius, ignorance is underlying condition considered as the primal action of the stirring of the perceptive faculty which initiates the creation of karma. So knowing others is intelligence. Knowing ourselves is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering ourselves is true power. Then Lao Tzu also said, some are born with knowledge, some derive from study, some acquire it only after a painful realization of the ignorance. But knowledge being possessed, it comes to the same thing. Some study with the natural ease, some from the desire to advantages, and some by strenuous effort. But the achievement being made, it comes to the same thing. When we see a good person, think of becoming like him or her. When we see someone not so good, reflect on our own weak points. To overcome the obstacles of ignorance, attack the evil that is within oneself rather than attacking the evil that is in others. So, living with three hearts. If we are depressed, we are living in the past. Do not dwell on the past. Do not dream of the future. Dispute creates obstacles. Why are there disputes? Disputes are from our heart and mind. Since people harbor all the bad things that have happened in the past and present in their heart, they believe that the future must also be bad. This is called three hearts and mind. Do not ponder on the past. Do not dwell on the present, nor contemplate the future. Contemplate the future. This way, we can be truly pure and tranquil and be free of hindrances. I will get there yet. So the present now means the date. Tomorrow is not promised us. Why is it that so many people put things off that need to be done? As Holy Teacher said, life goes by from year to year. However, no one can make a day longer. Life is available only in the present. The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate trouble, but to live in the present moment, wisely and earnestly. This was said by Buddha. The future, unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear, all are all caused by too much future thoughts and not enough present. Guilt, resentment, grievances, sadness, bitterness, and all forms of non-forgiveness are caused by too much past and not enough present. So desires is something that haunt most people, so especially now that it's around Christmas time, and especially so people start saying, oh, I need this, I need that, I have to go shopping. Too much desires, and it's one of the obstacles that we face. So if a man is proud of his wealth, he should not be praised until it is known how he employs it. There is no calamity greater than lavish desires. There is no greater guilt than discontent. And there is no greater disaster than greed. That was said by Lao Tzu. One of man's desire is in reaching his misunderstanding in the scriptures. So, from the scripture in Matthew 7:7, it says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you." Those who lavish on this was not told that one must give to receive. Giving is equal to receiving. And one must be willing to give earnestly to and for others before we could actually be receiving. So if we're just asking, there's not possible, or like we can't achieve anything without work. We have to do something to get something. The perception of objects obtaining based on observation or experience. Everything in human life, all sentient beings, are subject to empirical proof. So what we have to rely on is our belief and faith of substance and function. If we want to become whole, let ourselves be partial. If we want to become straight, let ourselves be crooked. If we want to become full, let ourselves be empty. If we want to be reborn, let ourselves die. If we want to be given everything, give everything up. By Lao Tzu. In cultivation, we are faced with passion and affliction, karmic deeds and retribution. Having passion, we learn that we must fully concede to our innermost self, and we are cultivators. This is a great step to overcoming obstacles. The delusion that we are or should be like others, non-cultivators, is delusionary. So again, because it's the holiday season, if your friends are saying, "Oh, let's go here, we have to go party, we have to go this, and we have to go this," cultivators don't really do that anymore, do we? Hey, Carrie? Occasionally. All right, so okay, all right. So we have to be very careful about trying to be, in like, let us say the saying, in like Flint. So we have to be careful with what we do.
Not drinking and getting drunk.
Yeah, but going out and your friends and having drinks and so is not in keeping with cultivation, right? Because, yeah, all right. Okay, sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah. Okay, the delusion that we are, and should be read that already. The ignorant mind with an infinite affection of passion and evil are rooted in the three poison of greed, anger, and delusion. Right. So, now, karmic deeds. Anything done for a temporary transient pleasure will add to the karmic deed. Merely putting the thought into practice, even the slightest thinking of the slightest vibration of the mind about a thing will earn a karmic function, injunction. So most people especially people that's not in the doubt or understand or believe in karma. Right? So they say and do things and don't understand. And there's so many different types of karma. So we have to be very careful. And just like just said, if the slightest thought, if we are thinking like you're walking down the street and you see someone did something, it's not so good. And sometimes you'll say, oh, that person should, like this, let's, for instance, the person littered, and you say, I wish that person should just fall in it. That's not so good. So we have to be very careful, because our thoughts sometimes is our greatest obstacle. Okay. Even the Buddhas could not escape from their karma. Praising someone for a job well done will earn us good karma. But if we were to resort to appreciation where it is not due, but want to placate someone's ego, then the appreciation will bring us negative karma. So retribution. As a cultivator, one should proceed to in the manner that does not harm someone. Or hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is the law eternal. Focus on protecting oneself and one's asset rather than hurting and punishing the other. The mere fact that it's admirable and necessary are good for sufficient reason, including the maintaining of the cessation of suffering and those involved. Another hindrance is attachment. Be content with what we have. Rejoice in the way things are. When we realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. It is important to understand that developing a stance on non-attachment is not the same as being callous or uncaring. In fact, losing our attachment makes us freer to open up our heart up wider. It is like being able to see the world from a higher perspective, from a God's eye view. If we will instead be only loving those to whom we are most attached, ourselves, our families, our faith, our political or social groups, or our country, our heart can grow to embrace the whole world. To overcome the obstacles of attachment in cultivation, we must first engage in detachment. Detachment can also be expressed in non-attachment, which is a state in which a person overcomes his or her attachment to desire for things, people, or concept, or the whole world, and this attain the heightened perspective. So now, wrong views. There are 4 inverted or wrong views in Tao cultivation. 1. What is really impermanent to be permanent? All that exists is impermanent. Nothing lasts. Therefore, nothing can be grasped or hold onto. When we don't fully appreciate this simple but profound truth, we suffer. 2. What is really suffering to be joy? Suffering for a long time without complaining, being very patient during difficult times, a feat that is quite hard to do. Most humans do not understand that tests and trials on one's life is due to karmic fate. while the feeling of pleasure and happiness comes from success, good fortune, or a sense of well-being. Something that pleasure and happiness is a pleasant joy to have. 3. What is not self to be self? Say, it's like lecture, Kai will call this Anita. Oh, that's how you say it? Anita or Aneta? Anata. Okay. See. The doctrine that there's no permanent human, there's an underlying substance that can be called the soul. Instead, the individual is compounded of 5 factors that are constantly changing. Those 5s are form, sensations or feeling, perception or ideas, mental formation or impulses, consciousness or awareness. Now, number 4, what is impure to be pure? By oneself is evil left undone. By oneself is one made pure. Purity and impurity depends on oneself. No one can purify another. Pure function is a function that does not have the eternal state. It means that all operations it performs are not affected by the state and given the same input parameters and produces the same deterministic output. So likes and dislikes can be quantified as desire. Most desires are consistent with the 5 precepts. So 1 is to refrain from taking life or killing any living being. 2, to refrain from taking what is not freely given. 3, to refrain from misuses of senses or sexual misconduct. 4, to refrain from wrong speech. 5 is to refrain from intoxicants that include the mind and drugs and alcohol. So no partying.
Me, I just do those stuff.
Okay, so how to desire and not crave. Okay, is of a compassionate and genuine origination. If this origination arises out of equanimity, then the desire is a right desire. While if the desire is either not in keeping with the 5 precepts or of ingenuous origination, it arises out of lack of equanimity and thus is characterized by attachment and craving. Then it is selfish and lack compassion. Ego and inner self. And the inner self. Our ego is something like a monkey catapulting through the jungle, fascinated by the realm of the senses. It swings from one desire to the next, one conflict to the next. Let the monkey go, let the desires go, let conflict go, let ideas go. Just remain in the center watching. So if something makes us feel bad, it's like the voice of our ego. If that things make us feel good, it is our inner self and feels good. When we are making an important decision, we ask ourselves, what is the right option? We know that the best decision is the one that makes us feel good. With the inner self, it is like the quiet person or child who sits in the classroom calmly in the corner. We wouldn't even notice that the child's among the chaos and disorder all around. The child is not fazed by the lack of attention, though he or she is completely content, taking all of it in, enjoying the new experience after the next, being the quiet observer. When we do acknowledge him or her, we feel a shift within. He or she is intriguing. Sometimes something just feels so right about him or her. The self is conceptualized by Confucius is a deeply relational self that responds to inner reflection with other virtues. Similarly, the self that Confucius wishes to cultivate is in himself, his own person, and in his disciples. One looks within and compares itself with the aesthetics, moral and social canon and tradition. And in conclusion, self-cultivation suggests that we apply our self-cultivation principles by obeying certain precepts, practice compassion, and absorbing wisdom. The aim of all this to see through and overcome the delusion of self. The non-self state is an authentic and durable happiness. As a cultivator, learning Tao should begin with the heart. It is said that a person's appearance reflects his heart. When the Buddha nature manifests, good or bad, kind or evil, everything becomes irrelevant. Furthermore, one will not be influenced by or outside forces. To overcome all of the above obstacles and others, self-cultivation is a necessity to help us letting go of the external forces, which will allow us to use our internal self. Self-cultivation is the development of one's mind and capacities through one's own effort. In the Confucius philosophy, self-cultivation is the process that belongs in the Confucian system, which refers to the action and effort of keeping the balance between inner and outer self, and between self and others. The perspective of basically moral self-cultivation, referring to the gradual process and building up one's character by making oneself receptive to the symbolic resources of one's own culture and responsive to the shareable value of one's own society. And that is the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Why did Christ say instead of absorbing wisdom, you should be displaying or manifesting wisdom?
Absorbing
Yeah, middle.
in the middle. Okay. All right. Any comments? Any questions? Yes.
Do not drink.
Well, you know, when you're in the class, we always like to pick. We like to pick on you. That's okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah. Okay. During that, I putting this together. I kind of came across this I forgot to put the site that I got it, but it's one of those. What's his name? One of the dog cultivators that we usually read his stuff thing. I forgot the website name, but he said he actually also came upon this poem that he while he was looking reading some scriptures, right? It says, affirming faith in mind opens with the lines, the great way is not difficult for those who do not pick and choose with preferences or are cast aside. The way stands clear and undistinguished. If you would clearly see the true discard opinion, pros and cons, to the founder of dislike and like is nothing but the mind disease, the mind disease, and not to see the way deep truth disputes and mind essential peace. So I don't. So I wrote it down because I find it's a nice poem to say how to keep our minds clear and not get into likes and dislikes. Yeah. Yeah. Jean, any comments?
No comment.
Any
Many things about the let's say getting over obstacles and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Really, is just to in a way to try to find out. Well, first of all, you understand this karma.
Yeah.
This karma. So therefore, anything that in a way can obstruct you, okay, can come from there. But at the same time, that you do have some, you do have your own self create karma, so to speak, and so therefore you have to really, I guess you could say, try to let go or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, to overcome karma, you have to understand how karma comes about, why there is karma. So if you understand causality, causality, then you realize that. Of course, you have to accept that. You don't accept that, that's the problem.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to accept the principle that, well, you plant the seed and you get a result. And so, well, the problem is we don't see the cause from past lives. If it's from past lives, we don't see the cause necessarily. But, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, that there's this continuous chain of causality throughout time. And so, and it can span more than one lifetime. Right. So, and that's really a very logical explanation, or maybe the only explanation for why things are the way they are. Because otherwise, it would just be kind of random, and we would say, "Oh, God is unjust." But that's, if we accept that God is just, then we have to accept the principle of causality. Okay, so once we can understand that, we accept it, then we know how to deal with it. We have to accept whatever karma. I mean, it doesn't, but there are ways to kind of mitigate it or overcome through, cultivation, through merit, performing merits, things like that. And of course, our mental attitude is very important. Right? We cannot be vengeful or have any anger towards the karma or whatever. So. Ideally, we have to be grateful no matter what. If we're grateful, then that's one way to overcome.
Yeah.
Because, and that's what, Buddha, Jesus, they all teach that, right?
Yeah.
To forgive, to turn the other cheek when those things happen. The idea is to not perpetuate that karma or create more karma. Okay, so that's the point of those teachings. And so if we can do that, then we know how to break that cycle. So if you look at the various places around the world, the Middle East, for example, there's no lasting peace there because they're constantly caught up in that cycle of karma, of killing each other, vengeance, right? And no one's willing to break that, is to like forgive and forget or to let go. And that's as far as we know, is the teachings from Jesus, from the Buddhas. They all say that, and so that would be the way to kind of end that and to overcome that karma eventually.
Yeah. But like you said, first people have to understand karma, because you're going down the street and something happened, and people like to say they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's not like that. It's always the right place at the right time, because again, it's the type of karma where you have that collective, right? Karma with the persons or person involved in whatever happens. So, because things don't happen randomly like that, there's always a cause and effect to let that thing happen. So,
Yeah, we can sympathize with things that happen, but still,
yeah,
you have to understand it. What's happening?
The thing is, if one doesn't understand, and they are vengeful and hateful,
Yeah.
and they are creating further karma,
Yeah.
and it will be endless.
yeah, yeah. But life is not really like a movie. So you see something happening, you're gonna take revenge. What happened? So one person take revenge for whatever reason, then that person have a relative or relatives, they're gonna take revenge, and the cycle keep going over and over. So it's not gonna end. So again, what do people believe in? So if we don't know how to forgive, then we're gonna have problems. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the teachings of the Buddha is basically just as this. You say, okay, yes, Four Noble Truths, okay, suffering, etc. But then the whole purpose is really try to figure out what's the cause of that suffering and all that stuff. But then that's the essence of understanding karma. If you can truly understand karma, you can, well, yeah, it seems more, it's obvious, so to speak. Anyway, okay.
Okay. All right. So,
Any questions?
any more question? Okay. All right. So, I thank you. If I've made any mistakes or said anything incorrectly, I ask the Buddhas and saints and all transmitter and all of you for my forgiveness, and hopefully next time I would not be able to make those mistakes again.